Hey guys, welcome to the Kick Out at 2 podcast. I'm the Wilk Man, Christopher Wilkins, here as usual with righteous Jesse Butler.
You didn't at me.
I didn't at you today.
Or do your Wilk Man.
We don't have time, Jesse, because I ain't even fucking around today. So much goddamn shit has happened in professional wrestling.
Fucking wrestling world exploded. Like, holy shit.
Look, here's what happened. Wrestle Kingdom was lit. All the matches were awesome. Except for the matches that weren't awesome, and they were still pretty okay.
And we just got our first lit on this podcast.
Yeah, of 2016.
Because 2016 is going to be lit, I guess.
That's the new catchphrase, I guess. Who knows? They said, Big E said it on Raw. Here, we'll get Raw out of the way. Raw was pretty decent. It was written by someone who actually likes wrestling and watches it again.
Oh yeah, I remember you texted me that.
They've been doing that lately. A lot of it kind of groaned when Chris Jericho came back.
Oh, I'm glad I didn't see that.
But look, I'm excited about the Royal Rumble now. I don't know who's gonna win. Probably Triple H. And we'll see. I'd be pretty pumped if Triple H got the strap.
Dude, I love Triple H. I have since I was a kid. Mm-hmm.
It's all about the game, and he's going to dedicate it to Lemmy.
Fuck.
I hope that happens.
Dude, high-five me.
There we go. Bringing it around. I like that the Rumble match has turned into a title match.
Are listening and you go to the Rumble and you don't have a win it for Lemmy sign? Disappointment.
Yeah.
I'm not even mad. I'm just disappointed. I even pointed to the microphone. Like
he's like aggressively pointing to the microphone. Okay.
Because Lemmy is God.
Yes. R.I.P. Except that he's not, R.I.P.'d because he ascended.
Yeah.
So
he went back.
Yeah. He
got tired of kicking it and just went back.
He's above all of us. Okay, so here's the deal. AJ Styles, I'm not going to do any spoilers. AJ Styles and Nakamura killed it at Wrestle Kingdom. So did Ishii and Shibata. So did Kenny Omega and Kushida. I don't really have a boner for Kushida like everybody else does.
A lot of people like Kushida.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, he's all right. Yeah. But I really like Kenny Omega for some reason. I think it's because he looks really creepy.
Dude, I made a connection.
He has
Psycho Sid hair.
He has Psycho Sid hair, and then he has like an anime villain face, which is what he plays off of anyways. Plus that one-winged angel finisher is sick.
Yeah.
So, I'm pumped about all he's doing. The main event, Tanahashi and Okada was good too. It was essentially a best of. I think they had they traded 6. They had 7 matches, 3 wins apiece, and a draw. Everyone was like, "Oh, we're tired of watching them wrestle." And then Okada, was the champ and never won at Wrestle Kingdom, and they had one hell of a main event finally.
Did you say Wrestle Kingdom was like 5 hours or
5 hours? Yeah, with the pre-show.
I'm watching it this weekend, and I don't give a fuck that I've already read spoilers.
Dude, look, the Great Kabuki and fucking Haku show up in a Rumble match beforehand, and then the next night Haku wrestled in a tag match with the Bullet Club.
I still love Haku.
Dude, he's the best. He's awesome. He's like everyone's scary uncle in professional wrestling.
True.
He's like that nice uncle that you knew not to fuck with.
Yeah.
And so that's what's awesome about him.
He would kill you and probably eat you.
But
Please don't do that to me.
But I guess I spoiled the main event because Okada does win, but it makes sense in the narrative, and people that complained about that.
I feel like most of the people that probably listen to this have already watched or don't care about spoilers because of the internet.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where it's like, of course he won. That's where it was going. It's kind of like a John Cena winning thing, except that this had meaning behind it.
Right. And
the people that complain about it, they would have bitched about, Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat tearing the house down.
You just can't please everybody.
You can't. And, they're trying to tell a story, and you want them to stop telling a story before it's finished. But then you want continuity. So, I don't know. Suck it.
Maybe you just want more spots.
Yeah, they just want spots. Well, there were high spots in that. That match was fucking awesome.
Because you can't please them all.
But, so, big news in the world of professional wrestling.
Fucking God, dude. Alright, so before you even go into it, my phone, since my phone is directly linked, I don't even log into my own Twitter anymore. I'm pretty much always on the Kick Out at 2 Twitter. I was an idiot, and I didn't disable the notifications, so my phone was literally just going crazy, and then I was getting texts and fucking Facebook notifications. I'm going to let you break the news, even though it's already been broken.
Okay. I want to preface this with the fact that 2 days ago, while watching Wrestle Kingdom, at 5:23 in the morning, because I stayed up all night to watch it.
True dedication.
I wrote on 1/4/16 at 5:23 a.m., just imagine a universe where Shinsuke Nakamura and Shawn Michaels main event against one another. And then the news broke when I got up that Nakamura and like half the Bullet Club had given their notice to New Japan. By the end of the night, there was stuff saying they were officially signed to WWE, and by the next day, WWE was quote-unquote not commenting on it while writing an article about it on their website.
And let's just mention all the names. AJ Styles.
Mm-hmm.
Former multiple-time world champion in various companies.
Yep.
Nakamura.
The biggest non-WWE professional wrestling star in the world right now.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah. Because I don't even keep up with New Japan regularly, and I am very well aware for who Nakamura is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, they're former, right? IWGP Tag Team Champions.
Mm-hmm. Fucking Doc Gallows was Festus, and Luke Gallows in the Straight Edge Society didn't get his real big...
He was in TNA as well.
Yeah.
That was... yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he got verified out of it, so...
Yeah, so...
shout out to being verified. We're trying to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Really, like, kind of the backbone of the Bullet Club. I mean, they stayed through, Balor going and then AJ Styles being there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Styles, Nakamura, Doc and Gallows, or Doc and Machine Gun.
Mm-hmm.
The possibility of Rocky Romero going to NXT to be a fucking trainer, which is cool as shit in my mind.
Oh, that's what they were doing with him? I didn't hear that. Okay. Because I couldn't place him anywhere in terms of the...
that's kind of been rumored for, I guess about... Somebody said something to me like a week ago about it, and I was like, whatever.
See, I never keep up with Rocky Romero stuff. I'm not a huge fan of his.
I enjoy Rocky. I think he's fucking hilarious because he's just kind of...
Well, he's funny just in wrestling.
I think he'll be a good trainer.
Yeah.
So let's see. I think we nailed all the Bullet Club guys.
Yeah. So...
Plus Nakamura.
Yeah, this is and the whole thing is they're saying that, and this is all speculation, but AJ and Nakamura will be going straight to the main roster, while the other guys will go to NXT with Balor first. Finn Balor's been teasing everything. They've been teasing stuff. It's so fucking exciting right now to be a wrestling fan. And of course there are the purists that are complaining like, oh yeah, they'll get turned into nothing there and whatnot. Good luck drawing a dime, they'll be like stupid lackey. Like, Carl Anderson has nowhere else to go in Japan.
Yeah.
They've done everything. Nakamura has done everything. AJ Styles has done everything.
In wrestling. Ring of Honor, Impact, WCW. He's done, shots for WWE, for, Velocity and stuff. New Japan.
It's just like everybody wanted Sting to go to WWE to, end it out just to say he had the match. AJ Styles is the younger version of Sting. Yeah. AJ Styles was the backbone of TNA.
Yeah,
AJ
years.
Styles was to TNA what Sting was to WCW. Only the difference is they're not. Sting thought he wasn't going to have another match, so he went out.
Yeah.
How a wrestler of his time period would go out in that sense. But AJ Styles still has some years on him. And just, what can you say? Think of the possibilities of who he can wrestle.
And even if you, all right, so there's a lot of people in the world that just take things and, this shook up my world entirely, and all for the best, because when things like this happen, I've been saying it for a while, I just feel like all of wrestling is just on this huge brink of, I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. But then, of course, you have your naysayers, and that goes with fucking TNA or, whatever company. They don't want to see people do good. I really think that if AJ Styles goes straight to the main roster, I think he should.
Yeah.
I really think he should. What's he going to do in NXT?
Nothing.
He's literally done everything in wrestling.
AJ Styles is not going to be anywhere to get people over.
Exactly.
AJ Styles is the one that they
need
to be getting over so that they can build another top star. And I believe Triple H is the one who's understanding all this, even though he seems to be the one that... Also, I feel like Triple H is sitting in the back like, man, those Bullet Club guys are kind of like how my buddies and me were. Maybe I can be friends with them.
I feel like he's seen pictures of various Bullet Club members with pictures, with Hall and Nash and Sean Waltman.
And then he's probably buddied up with Finn Balor.
Yeah, and he gets it. Like,
yeah.
This isn't the same WWE, WWF that, where guys were signed because they were big and can't wrestle. Like, this is a fucking great time to be a wrestler and a wrestling fan.
Because the people will be like, oh, they only want big dudes, blah, blah, and then they'll shit on Triple H for all these years. Triple H is the reason that you even have Kevin Owens and Finn Balor and all these people on the roster.
Triple H was on Cesaro's side when Vince McMahon didn't know what the fuck to do with him.
Yeah. So, I mean...
Speaking of Cesaro... Raw's coming to Nashville very soon in February. Make sure you go to What a Maneuver to get your
Cesaro section signed. Also, NXT is coming again. Yeah. Tickets go on sale probably while you're listening to this podcast on Friday morning.
But we'll get into all that.
Yeah, we'll get it. Yeah,
What a Maneuver out of nowhere.
So yeah, and it's an exciting time to be a fucking wrestling fan. Your favorite wrestlers are going to get to go somewhere where they might be able to make even more money, and you might get to see AJ Styles wrestle John Cena, and even if John Cena goes over, you got to see a dream match that you weren't going to see.
Think of it this way. I think this is the coolest way to look at it. Everybody wants their own little secret, and whatever nook of the world they're buried in. If you're into hardcore, you want that one band that's like, man, I wish this band would get really big, but deep down inside you're like, well, I want to...
you want to see them in the small venues forever. Yes.
This is where you're getting your chance. These guys have done the indie shows, the New Japan shows, the shows where people didn't want to see them succeed. And now, like, your favorite wrestlers have a potential to be so many other people's favorite wrestlers. Nothing but good things are on the horizon.
And everyone understands that you were cool and you saw them first.
Exactly.
Like, because
save those indie flyers for cool points.
Yeah, save that stuff, save the old merch, and then you can start selling it around and make a killing because you've got the cool stuff from before.
Unless you're like me, you cut the sleeves off.
Yeah, fuck sleeves.
Just fuck cool points.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm like almost 30 years old. I don't care anymore.
And I enjoy wrestling because I enjoy wrestling.
Yeah. So that's what okay. Here's my question that is kind of like
heat-seeking missile?
Heat-seeking, but like I'm kind of poking fun, but also kind of like an So, who do you think that they'll use to get AJ over first, Ziggler or Breeze?
Man,
who's he gonna go over on first?
I feel like WWE realizes they have a great worker in Ziggler, but he's been on TV too long.
Yeah.
In WWE's eyes. I think Ziggler will take the fall first.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with Breeze, they're like, hey, a fresh face, we can do something with this, even though they're not really pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
But it's somebody on the roster. It gives the roster some depth.
Yeah.
But I think Ziggler will take the first loss. If these matchups take place, I feel like Ziggler will take the first loss.
When this matchup takes place, he's going to wrestle Dolph Ziggler, and he's going to beat Dolph Ziggler.
I feel like Ziggler will take the first fall.
To which I'm going to say another thing. I miss when Dolph Ziggler was a wrestler. I miss when...
Somebody else said that not too long ago.
Yeah, you know what... Dolph Ziggler is... I almost think he should have left WWE and gone and worked somewhere else. Because... it's like he doesn't care anymore. Like, he cut a promo on Monday and it's just like there's nothing there. He doesn't care.
I used to back Dolph Ziggler so hard. Like, I mean, I still like his work when it's, top notch. But I mean, and I get it where he's probably at a point where he's like, I mean, I'm getting paid. I feel like Dolph Ziggler used to showcase his talent every match. Dolph Ziggler may be the most jaded wrestler on the roster, and I don't know if he realizes it. And I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. Also, another thing I'm very fucking excited about is the Social Outcasts stable that started on Monday with Adam Rose, Curtis Axel, Heath Slater, and Bo Dallas.
poor Fandango.
I'm not stoked about Curtis Axel. I was at first. I was very excited about Curtis Axel when he first started off. I love Bo Dallas. Heath Slater, I'll back. Who was the other one?
Adam Rose. See, I'm most excited for Adam Rose and Curtis Axel, actually. Here's why. Curtis Axel actually has some fire behind him, where a lot of those other guys, like, don't. Like, when he got the mic and he just started yelling like he was fucking pumped.
Yeah.
I was like, good for him. He could get somewhere. I feel bad for two wrestlers, as Fandango and Sandow, because why wouldn't they be in that group?
Yeah.
I don't know who...
I mean, there's always... Carrie and I talked about this. And if it's done right, it could be... I don't want to say done right. It could be a power group, or it could be everybody's favorite stable and be the Job Squad.
See, that's what I'm thinking. It could go
for expansion, so
it could go either way. And if they're getting exposure and they're making money off of it, then that's all that matters. But these were four guys that were wallowing in shit.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, they had Heath Slater had like lost his whole stable before.
God, dude.
But there's no reason.
There's a reason they kept Slater.
They need to rein in their gimmicks together, though, instead of them looking like four such different characters.
They need to have that sense of unity.
You know what heel group I feel like should have come back?
Who?
Rights to Censor.
Man.
Because even though it's a PG show,
it would be great.
Yeah, it would be so grating.
Plus, you get a Stevie.
They could,
kick.
yeah. He was on. I watched him on Ring of Honor. Recorded this week. He was fighting Roderick Strong.
But that was pretty good.
Well, it was. I did not know Roderick because I never listened to ROH entrance music.
Yeah.
He came out to fucking Misery Signals.
Target.
I was just like, bruh.
Speaking of Ring of Honor, I want to dive into a little something else since we're talking about jumping ships. Mike Bennett and Maria showed up to Impact.
Mm-hmm.
Also, speaking of Impact, ROH was my segue for that, by the way. Also, speaking of Impact, James Storm. Back to Impact to reform Beer Money. Could have been the smartest decision he made.
Yeah.
Think about it. We don't know how long talks of AJ Styles and Nakamura and all those other guys coming to WWE have been in place.
Yeah.
Storm may have heard, that this was happening while he was in talks, doing NXT stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He might have realized that, hey, this is happening. I'm about to get overshadowed. Might as well go back.
Go somewhere else. Yeah. It'd be sick if Beer Money went to Japan.
It'd be sick if... I love Bobby Roode and I love James Storm. Like, I'm bummed that James Storm went back to TNA because it was easier for me to watch him on WWE television.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to hunt for it. But I'm also stoked that he went to TNA, or I guess Impact, because he could probably still do indie dates, which means he'll probably still randomly pop up here in Nashville.
Or fucking Clarksville,
exactly.
Of all places.
So, I mean, I'm stoked for James Storm. Let the haters hate. I've said it before, I wish nothing but the best for Impact. I hope that they stick with Pop, and I hope that Pop gives them a chance to grow, and I hope Pop grows as a network so it gets in more homes.
Yeah.
Because the more places there are to wrestle, everybody wins. Wrestlers win. You get shit like fucking the New Japan hop happening to WWE. And, I mean, that's also a good thing for New Japan because they can make more stars. They can reach out and get more, more Americans or, whoever in.
Yeah, because when you see a star like this come from there and they see them, they go, I wonder where the place they came from was like.
Exactly.
Because that's what I always did. Also,
it's like, it's this weird thing that I had. When I would buy a CD, I would always read the thanks. And the bands that were mentioned, if a name stood out, I would look that band up. I kind of feel like that's how wrestling is turning into.
Yeah. Also, Nakamura better be with Paul Heyman. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't even have to expand upon that. All right. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, this is going to be a little bit of a long episode. I don't want to take too much longer on the intro. We've got an awesome conversation that we recorded on Sunday when we were all very sick. I had to call in my part of the interview. I couldn't make the hour drive because I felt that miserable. With Joe Black from the Sound of the Fury, recently wrestled Team IOU at AWE, in a dog collar match.
Yep.
Which there are clips of that on the internet. Very fucking ridiculously violent match.
Brutal.
So, really fun conversation. We will be talking.
Touch on a lot of nerdier subjects.
Yeah, we talk video games, anime. I get to I start to shine with my fucking nerddom. So if you didn't already understand that I was nerdy from the way I talk on here, anyways.
And there's also wrestling talk.
And there's a lot of wrestling talk. This guy really knows his wrestling history and watches a lot of wrestling.
He says it in the podcast, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there too. A true student of the game.
Yes.
Studies his tapes, which you don't hear a lot about. A lot of guys just phone it in and keep, they don't use all their resources.
Also, he mentions a picture that someone was making for a flyer of him versus Cedric Alexander, where one of them is Goku and he's Vegeta. I saw it online today. It's on his Facebook, so you should look it up. He'll talk about it on there. It's really awesome. I got really excited about it because Dragon Ball Z rules. With that, as always, we want to plug What a Maneuver. Big Bootleg Drop, whatamaneuver.net, and Big Bootleg Drop. Big Bootleg Drop's going to be kind of backed up because they did a sale.
Actually, not really. I got my stuff today.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
well,
I ordered it last week.
I just figured it would take them a little bit to get their stuff printed and going because of how much they
pumped it out.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to get my stuff today. Also, your boys are going to be on the road.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be at St. Louis Anarchy February 13th and 14th. That's a Saturday and a Sunday. And then Ring of Honor is in Nashville on
February
6th. I'm looking right at it and I can't even read. And Ring of Honor, or not Ring of Honor, NXT is the day before.
February 5th.
February 5th at War Memorial. Ring of Honor will be at the Municipal Auditorium. And Chris and I just kind of decided this last minute that we're going to go to AWE, where Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano will be.
Mm-hmm. It'll be Gargano versus Jimmy Rave and Chip Day versus Tommaso Ciampa.
Both should be great matches.
On Sunday. So,
get out there and support, live wrestling. Make sure you're hitting up gimmick tables and buying T-shirts from your favorite wrestlers. Because these guys don't just these guys have lives outside of wrestling, and the goal is ultimately to make it to a bigger platform, but they can't do it without support. It takes, you can spot a wrestling shirt when you see a wrestling shirt. So if you're out to, if you go out to a wrestling show, pick up an 8x10 a T-shirt, or if you're Josephus Brody thinking outside of the box.
And selling
coffee mugs, Christmas ornaments, fanny packs,
anything.
Hit up your favorite wrestlers pro wrestling tee shop. There's a lot of good wrestling merch out there. Don't be afraid to wear your wrestling merch. I wore an El Generico hoodie in the gym tonight while I did leg day the first day back, and it was fucking terrible.
And we also want to say, if anybody wants to sponsor the podcast or have their themselves advertised on here, we can work something out. If you want to email us at kickoutat2pod@gmail.com and discuss with us if maybe we haven't heard of you yet, because we're all for promoting each other.
Yeah.
It's not a monetary thing. We just want to get names out there and get our name out there. And so if we can do cross-promotion with anybody, feel free to let us know.
With Lucha Underground approaching, I can't help but mention the Last Real Heels. Those guys, they're heavy Lucha Underground supporters. So if you haven't checked out that podcast, you really need to check those guys out. Awesome dudes. Pretty local. They don't live too far away from us. They're just solid guys. They're all about, helping out. Also, another podcast you should be checking out if you're not. Marty DeRosa does Wrestling with Depression. Sometimes he'll have wrestling guests. Sometimes he'll have other guests. I'm pretty sure he always has a guest, though. He's done Wrestling with Depression for years. He's been on a streak lately of doing shows or podcasts. He's gotten back at it. And I actually just started listening to the episode he did with Gregory Iron recently, the newest episode, and it's pretty great. Always love hearing, what real people that I actually watch on TV have overcome, in their lives, whether it be anxiety or handicaps, whatever. So, just support wrestling and podcasts and each other. And if you have something you want promoted, you can hit us up on Twitter at KOAT Podcast. Hit us up on Instagram at KOAT Podcast. Pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
I run the Twitter, and I love seeing flyers from, shows that are happening. IWA Mid-South is happening this Friday. And Lee Byford will be there. Brett Eisen will be there. Billy Gunn, Sammy Callahan.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Michael Elgin. So if you live in that area, go check that out. We have a former guest being Brett Eisen and a future guest being Lee Byford.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to get Big Mike on here because I'm a huge Michael Elgin fan.
Yeah. I wish WWE would sign him.
God, dude, I don't understand.
Because Ring of Honor doesn't know what to do with him.
I don't think he's doing Ring of Honor.
He
was doing Japan and then.
Well, he wrestled for the Ring of Honor championship at Wrestle Kingdom.
But I don't think he's actually doing Ring of Honor dates.
I think they'll have a rematch, but I don't know.
So you can keep up with us on the internet at KOAT Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. We have a YouTube channel that I'll get better about tweeting the link out so you guys can find us. We are on Facebook. Just search Kick Out at 2 Podcast. We're there. I believe that's all the social media we're on right now.
Yeah.
Catch us at live shows, from Midwest to Southeast. Maybe one day we'll make our way out west to PWG or up north.
Yeah, and up north. Fuck it. We don't have anything to do. We're just living our lives.
As long as I got time off and there's wrestling shows to be at, I'll be there.
Yeah. I guess it's time to get to the contest.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of submissions, I guess because too many of you are closet Hulkamaniacs, which we won't say anything about that. But we did have one real submission that was actually very good. They followed the rules.
Yeah. 100% to a T, followed the rules. And like Chris said, we did have a few submissions, but this one, he really put the time in. And we were gonna do a random generator to pick the winner, but I feel like this is such an easy pick.
I think it was the only one that actually followed all the rules of the contest as well.
And it was a little. It wasn't a late submission, but it was later.
Yeah.
And I guess time worked on his side since we couldn't record last night. But the winner at Brandon Brains.
We will be tweeting out his video as well.
Oh, I've already started.
Oh, you've already tweeted it? Okay.
I saw it. He doesn't know that he won yet.
Oh, okay.
I'll contact him in a little bit and let him know.
So let us know what shirt you want and everything from What a Maneuver, and we will be shilling out our cash. Hard-earned. Sometimes. To get you that. I won't be able to buy a video game now, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm just kidding. I don't have any more to buy.
Takes out of my gas tank when I go to AWE. Just kidding. It's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Supports the good brothers at What a Maneuver. Gets a good wrestling fan a new wrestling shirt. And I hope you picked the one that I would pick, but I'm not going to tell you which one it is yet. I'll tell you on Twitter after you tell me which one you would have picked.
And then you can't know takesies backsies. You have to take the one that you said.
Yep.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and end this one. We're very excited about wrestling. We'll see you guys at AWE on Sunday probably.
Yep.
St. Louis soon. All these places.
Yeah, there's a show that hasn't been announced yet that, I'm going to be at. And once it gets announced, it will be announced via us. We're not breaking the news, but
I was like, did we get an exclusive?
Fuck, I wish. Maybe I'll reach out there and see.
Sweet.
So yeah, support live wrestling, support your friends, support Through Being Cool podcast, and fucking be excellent, man.
All right, and we'll be right back with our interview with Joe Black. Breaking news at the end of the podcast that we'd already recorded. Apparently, according to Tokyo Sports, Nakamura will be leaving New Japan officially at the end of the month.
He's going to the Fed, you fucking marks.
Yeah, and so that means Nakamura may be at WrestleMania. That's all I've got to say about that. We will be posting this on our YouTube and all that sorts of stuff and getting it out to you because we are very excited.
Yep, Nakamura to the Fed.
And now listen to the rest of the podcast with the interview and everything. Thank you very much. We're Kick Out at 2.
All right, guys, welcome to Kick Out at 2. It's Jesse here with Chris, Chris Wilkins, the Wilk Man.
The Wilk Man.
And
if it sounds weird, it's because I'm out of the quote unquote studio today because I'm under the weather. But that wasn't going to stop me, so I called in
his own podcast. Today we have Joe Black, one half of the Sound of the Fury. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. I'm a little under weather myself, but these things happen.
What you got going on today, man? What's got you feeling under the weather?
Man, I think I got like a pretty gnarly head cold. I really don't even know. I don't know if my bronchitis flared up or if it's just, I have no idea. I just know I feel like absolute dog shit.
I feel that.
Yep, that's all three of us today.
I know the weather here in Tennessee has been fucking ridiculous. Like a week ago, it was like the week of Christmas, it was 70 degrees, and then out of nowhere, we got a crazy ass cold snap. So now, like, my head feels all shitty, and my throat feels like fucking sandpaper. Yep. So I imagine we're all going through about the same thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to start today off a little bit different. You and I met, I believe it was last week, at Show of the Year at AWE in Atlanta. And something that struck me as different about you, usually when we talk to people about doing the podcast, they're like, kind of whatever about it, but you seemed really interested. Is this your first podcast, or have you done other podcasts?
I've done quite a few. It's just, kind of like you said in your message, I'm not one of those cats that takes itself too seriously. I believe that in the independence, like, pretty much the more that we can actually band together and help each other out, the better that everybody's brand can become. And anytime I get a chance to actually talk to, new people, that, reaches a new demographic, I try to seize the opportunity. And the fact that you're cool with Carrie Off will pretty much, that is stone for me. It's like, yeah, I really want to talk to him now. But yeah, you seem like a cool guy, and anything that I can do to help the independence wrestling in general, I'm always game for.
That's awesome. I feel like not a lot of guys really have that same attitude. It seems like a lot of guys are, out for themselves, out to make themselves look better. So it's really cool to catch that kind of refreshing, just sense of, everybody help everybody. We can all make this better together, whether it's a guy running a podcast or, a guy that's wrestling or even, managers and referees. It's cool just to have that sense of unity that sometimes independent wrestling lacks because everybody's so out for themselves.
Exactly.
But since we've already touched on Carrie, I'd like to go back and talk about that dog collar match. That match was fucking insane. I can't wait for Chris to get to watch it because holy shit, like, just I was really bummed because I didn't get to watch you and Carrie outside with the mist and stuff. But like, whenever you go into a match like that, like, what goes through your head? Are you just like, all right, balls to the wall, whatever's gonna make this work, or like, are there any reservations, for you?
Absolutely none. Like, Carrie and Nick, I like to say that they are vanguards of what professional wrestling should be. They represent how the boys in the locker room, how wrestlers should conduct themselves. I consider, Carrie like pretty much a mad genius. So going into that match, the only thing that I thought of was like how much it was going to hurt afterwards. But I was so amped about it. I usually get built in, the more technical, hey, we want to, the Benoit guy type, BS. I don't really get to flesh out my character, but that was the first chance I actually got, to show the brutal side. And, I love Steve Carino, and so I told Steve about the match, and I watched the old Dusty match. I watched a lot of Terry Funk, and I just got even more excited. It's like, it really was. Usually when I have more of like, for example, when I wrestled Chip Day in the Best of 5 series, with that, it's a lot of studying involved, trying to make sure I pick my spots correctly, trying to make sure that everything's technically crisp. But with this, it's like, hey, man, we had a few Bud Lights, and it was just like, man, this is really going to hurt out.
Well, see, it's awesome because you're approaching it like it's a fight instead of just like a technical match. Like it's a dog collar match. Of course, you're going to have to whoop the shit out of each other. So you would go back and watch the Terry Funks and all that. And I've watched some of your matches on YouTube, and when you were saying that this got to be more brutal, like you're pretty snug from what it looks like. So just thinking about you being more aggressive and stuff like that, I feel bad for Kerry and Nick.
Man, and Kerry's the only one that actually gives it back. Like Kerry, he's a masochist, man. It's just I love Kerry awful. Like I hate his guts, but I love him so much because he's like-minded, man.
Yeah, we used to go to shows and see bands and stuff with Kerry where he would be moshing, and I can attest to the fact that even then he was not shy about his aggressive nature.
Yeah,
so
it's funny that you brought that up because I think it was on the way back from Atlanta. It was either on the way to or from. Kerry was like, I treat wrestling how I used to treat shows. Hit hard, leave an impression, and save your apologies for later.
I know he's bruised people's ribs before in the pit, so.
I also, I feel like you don't hear about it a lot, but what you touched on, with actually studying and doing research to get in the mindset for the match, you don't hear about that. Kerry talks to me a lot about, different matches that he'll have and what he does to kind of, get a good feel for the match. So I think that's really cool that you went back and you kind of got the right mindset because, even before you got to the show in Atlanta, Kerry was like, he knew I was excited about watching the match, but he was like, you really need to watch Joe. He was like, whenever we've, kind of met up, he was like, you're Chris and I'm Eddie. So he definitely kind of referenced you to Chris Benoit, which really caught my interest because I'm a huge Benoit fan. And then going back and watching some of your stuff, I can really see, just in the intensity of your matches where, from that alone, he would draw that reference. And then when you go back and reference Carino, that's cool too, because even though Carino's relevant with, Ring of Honor, I feel like maybe a lot of the newer guys that get into wrestling, whether they're wrestling or their fans, just don't really have a good grasp on what Carino can and, used to do.
Exactly.
So who would you say some of your, top influences are?
I'd have to say first and foremost, the first match I can remember seeing was Survivor Series 91, where Taker beat Hogan with the assistance of Ric Flair, of course, for the World Heavyweight Championship. And ever since, I was never one of those kids that was like a huge Hulk Hogan guy. Like all my friends, they love Hulk Hogan, all the colorful stuff. But I wasn't really sold. But when I first saw Taker, there was something about him. I was like, this is the coolest wrestler in the world. So Taker is definitely just, in my opinion, he exemplifies everything that professional wrestling is, should be, can be, has to be. Like he has a mind for it. Like he's dedicated his life to the betterment of his business. Like it's a testament to him that he's still a top draw nowadays. Like people are still excited to see Taker. The mysticism, like you never, like of course we know it's a gimmick, but even though we know it's a gimmick, we suspend our disbelief, and when you see him, it's just like, wow, this dude is badass. So Taker's definitely the chief influence. I've always tried to pattern myself, after Taker as far as just being different. Thinking out of the box. Don't be so static and being the regular guy. Taker, he was given pretty much a joke gimmick, and he took it and he made it iconic. Definitely, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, love Owen. I think Owen Hart is the greatest Hart. That's my opinion. Chris Benoit, I think, as and it's a taboo subject, of course, but Benoit to me, when I first saw him, when he won the heavyweight championship, that was the moment that I said I have to wrestle. Like, this is a shorter guy. I really did like it into Wolverine. Like, this is Wolverine. Like, this is the dude. He's a short dude, but he's so vicious that you never look at his size. And when Benoit started the motor going, you didn't focus on the fact that he was 5 foot 9. You didn't see that. He could be in the ring with Big Show. You wouldn't see that. All you saw was this vicious, intense guy that was small, but he hit harder than the guys that he was in the ring with. And I always patterned myself after Chris. And I'm a shorter guy. I'm a stocky guy. So if I can match that sort of intensity where people don't focus on the fact that I'm a short guy, that would be my ticket. Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Hennig, Kurt Angle. There's so many guys that I love to watch. That Gentleman Chris Adams. Even the world of sport, I study that. I love Johnny Saint. I love Mike Flash Jordan. I love Rollerball Rocco. Like Finley. I'm a student of the game, truly. I love all facets of wrestling. Like, I love Lucha, Pentagon, Mil Mascaras. I watch a little bit of everything. Like, I think I'm obsessed.
That's awesome.
That's really awesome, because you don't have a lot of people come and talk about how much wrestling they actually watch. It's kind of, there's like a mentality, like, it seems with wrestlers where it's like, get yourself over and don't really talk about anybody else, even if it's, because you'll ask somebody who their favorite wrestlers were, and they'll give you like 3 guys and not really expound on it, and then you love wrestling like we love wrestling, and that's refreshing. And also, to your point, I never knew how tall Chris Benoit was. I never looked it up. Whenever they would talk about him being undersized, I'd be like, he's big as shit. I don't know what anybody's talking about. I didn't know he was 5'9".
He had that big fight.
Yeah, he was. I mean, when he stood next to The Rock, I didn't notice he was shorter than The Rock. So, I mean, mission accomplished.
Yeah. 2 things that you said that really stuck out with me were, one, the fact that you said you were never a big Hulk Hogan fan. Definitely in the same boat with that, when I was always like a Macho Madness kid. And like that Undertaker match, even though it was in 91, it still sticks out. I think if you've been watching wrestling pretty much your entire life, like, that moment is just one of those moments that really define wrestling for you, as a fan. And I was actually going back and I was watching some of the Monday Night War episodes, and they talk about how, Undertaker is just like, he's like the landmark for professional wrestling, because he was always a locker room leader, and he was always for the betterment of the business. He never went into business for himself. If there was something where he could do an angle where it got, multiple guys over or in the spotlight for a while, and he knew it would be better for business, he would kind of sacrifice, not necessarily take the back seat, but not have all of the limelight, which is super rare in this business. There's a lot of guys, like I said, that, want to big league you, or just, make sure that they get their time. And it's not really good. I mean, it might be good for the moment for the business, but overall, when you have more guys like The Undertaker, it's just, that's what makes the business.
Exactly.
So, growing up in the 90s, I'm assuming we're all probably pretty close in age. I'm 27. I'm not sure where you're at.
Right around that same number.
Perfect. So we're all pretty close. I'm assuming growing up in the 90s, you were probably like wrestling fanatic as a kid, like action figures, video games, and all that.
Yeah.
Were you
man.
Were you like the old hard plastic WCW and WWF toys, or were you like the bone crunching action figure toys?
All of them. Man, I had the Hulk Hogan Wrestle Buddy. I think that was the only one. I had the Ultimate Warrior too, I believe. I had all the action figures, man, from the bone crushing series to the hard plastic that didn't move, that was like kind of bulky, weird looking. Like, I had all the games from the regular Nintendo system to the Sega Genesis to the Super Nintendo. I'm showing my age. I do not care. Like, then WrestleMania 2000 came out for Nintendo 64. And actually, before then, it was WCW versus NWO World Tour. And I love that game, especially when I discovered that you can unlock Diamond Dallas Page to see the character. And then, like, WrestleMania 2000 came out, and my mind was just blown. Like, me and my friends played that every day without pause for years. And I'm a Final Fantasy guy. I love Metal Gear Solid. There was other games that, I had a PlayStation, but I never really played it because we were on WrestleMania 2000 for so long. and then No Mercy came out, and then the rest was just after that. The rest was history. But yeah, I was the kid with the Bret Hart poster. I was the kid that hated the other kids that got Bret Hart shaved. But now, and that should have been me. Like, fuck that kid. I want that shave. You know, I walked around school talking like Macho Man. Every time somebody remembers me and I see somebody I went to school with, and they find out that I'm actually a wrestler, they're like, well, that's par for the course. That's all the hell you talked about. You know, whether it was, and I listen to a lot of hip hop. Like, I'm a Tupac head. I love Wu-Tang Clan. And it got to a point where, like, one of the teachers was like, yeah, told my dad, your son, he says certain things, and he has certain gestures, and I can only assume it's from the hip-hop culture. He writes lyrics on his notebook, and I'm pretty sure it's the Tupac mentality. My dad was like, nah, he was Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's why he flips the bird. He does karate chops because of Shawn Michaels. Like, it has nothing to do with rap music. Like, it was poisoning a lot of my friends or whatever. Like, nah, it's DX. That's his problem. So, like, the biggest punishment then was no N64, no wrestling, no nothing. That's felt like my world was imploding off of.
God, that was when one of the first games I had on Nintendo 64 was No Mercy, and I still, if I could find it, I would run that. I would be running that thing into the ground now. I play games still. I have the new wrestling game. Nothing was as good as 2000 and No Mercy in terms of gameplay and just everything you could do. So I understand that completely.
I feel
and
like
luckily I never had wrestling taken away from me, or else I would have been devastated.
Dude, my mom knew that was like the one way to really get to me. And going back to No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000, I feel like for people that are really, have a strong love of the business of professional wrestling, there are 3 games that you'll always hear mentioned, and they're all pretty interchangeable, and that's WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy, and then Fire Pro Wrestling, I believe is the other one. I vaguely remember that. I played it a little bit as a kid, but WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy were like readily available for me. And Carrie and I have talked about Fire Pro before, and we talked to somebody else. I think it was maybe the Washington Bullets talked about it too. But those are the 3 games that I feel like if you grew up loving professional wrestling like we did, those are the 3 games that you talk about the most.
Fire Pro Wrestling had a weird control scheme. It's not something for the casual fan at all to jump into and be able to win a match on. That's like the wrestling simulator.
Right.
Like, people still will take. You can go on YouTube right now and type in any 2 current wrestlers, and someone has made them and had their dream match on Fire Pro Wrestling.
I feel like there was a point where Carrie and I, when we first met, probably sat around and watched YouTube videos of stuff exactly like that.
Yeah. People make weird shit too. You should see the weird entrances they make on video. So you're into Final Fantasy and stuff like that too, as we kind of. Well, we never really get to dip away from the wrestling in terms of video games that much. I got me a PlayStation 4 for Christmas, and they had a PlayStation 2 game called Rogue Galaxy on it. I don't know if you ever did you play that one?
I played it.
I never got to play it when it was out. When it was out, I was working at a game store, and I never got to get around to it because my PlayStation 2 died, and I downloaded it on the PlayStation, and I've been playing it nonstop. It's fucking fantastic. I love, like, Japanese RPGs and stuff like that, and I don't think I've gotten to, like, touch on that on the podcast, which obviously I wouldn't. It's wrestling, but I was just excited to hear somebody else play and stuff like that.
But it's weird because a lot of some of my inspirations that I get come from, anime. It comes from Final Fantasy. I call myself the Black Cloud, and a lot of people are trying to, I write poetry. So, like, they're trying to ascertain some deep meaning, like, the Black Cloud could be your ambition, or maybe, this demon that follows you around. It's always da-da-da-da-da. I'm just thinking, no, it's Black Cloud from Cloud from Final Fantasy 7. I'm just the black version of that. But But if you want to attribute all these deep things to it, I mean, I'm flattered, but that's not what it means by any length. But, you know, I get a lot of, like the way I wear my battle sash when I wrestle, I usually wrap like a sash around my waist when I wrestle. I stole that from Link from Zelda. It's like, there's a lot of things that I've taken from animes because you really don't see it. You know, I'm a Naruto and Dragon Ball Z mark, you know, so.
Yeah, that's awesome, because there's a thing that I don't think a lot of wrestlers understand in terms of taking from other parts of popular culture and using it in terms of, like, everything. Because, like, I mean, Dusty Rhodes was, like, a big Western fan, so he used that sort of stuff. Like, and our generation, we grew up in the video game time, and I don't know if there are enough people really latching on to that or the animes or stuff like that. Like, and there were so many. I mean, there was a fucking Tiger Mask cartoon show in Japan, and Kaniku Man, which was all about an alien wrestler. Like, there's this whole culture there, and I don't think enough wrestlers now. I mean, you see it with like Xavier Woods and stuff like that now, where he's really tapping into it. He's playing the fucking victory music from Final Fantasy VII on a trombone on Monday Night Raw, and no one's getting it. Like, there's so much people can use. It's almost like having unlimited resources, and everybody just kind of wants to be like the badass, like I fight guy. But you literally can take from anywhere, and so I'm glad that you take little nuances and stuff from the gaming and anime culture and use it.
Yeah, it's definitely a breath of fresh air to see somebody pull resources from other areas aside from just the the typical rehashed stuff. Anybody can be a badass, or at least pretend to be a badass. But when you have guys that go the extra mile to really like kind of build their character with things outside of wrestling and things outside of like, well, I'm going to be the next Steve Austin or whatever. Nothing against Steve Austin. It's not a knock at all, but it's just cool to hear somebody, care enough about their, I guess, character to really pull from all these different directions and, kind of try to build something rather than copy something.
Exactly.
And
I learned how to be a heel from Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. Because, like I said, that was one of the games I grew up with, and he had a demeanor about him. At first, he's just a cool, calm, collected, whatever. I can fuck shit up. And then he finds out the secret of his lineage, that he was pretty much created in a lab, and then he like goes batshit. And if you watch some of my matches while I'm a heel, like I start off, I'm calm. I'm technically precise, but once that guy starts out working me, I'll start to get gradually unraveled, and I'll just go batshit. And people are like, man, that's you get that from the Joker, right? Because now it's a cool thing. Everybody wants to be the Joker.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm pretty sure I got that from, Final Fantasy VII. Like, what's that?
Yeah.
The conversation has been terminated.
Was that your favorite one, or have you played the others in the series?
I love 6 because Kefka was the shit. 8 was the one I started with. And the fact that it had the main weapon was a gun that was a sword was always stuck out to me. That was the first one I actually beat. But 7, just with Cloud and Sephiroth, and I call one of my damn submissions Knights of the Round. Never said that much of a mark for it. I love Final Fantasy 7. Definitely my favorite one.
Yeah, I really was a big fan of 8. I actually bought a Walls Gunblade. They had a replica of it. I got it for $30 at in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, at like this weapons store. I didn't know they sold stuff like that. This was years ago. I was there. I was like, yeah, I'm not leaving without this thing. So I've got a replica Gunblade. But yeah, I always I love 7 and I like 8, and I actually like Final Fantasy 10 a lot too, just because of when I played it. Some people kind of don't like that one, but I don't know. It kind of, the graphics at the time and the story, because I was going through some stuff that blew my mind back when I had it, and it was a good escape from my normal day-to-day life. So, but I'm glad that you've taken so much from from Final Fantasy and stuff like that. Did you ever play Kingdom Hearts? Because I'm a Kingdom Hearts nerd. Okay.
Kingdom Hearts Part 2, especially, I love the first one, but the second one, when they included Organization 13, them cats were just so cool to me.
Yeah.
Especially Axel. Like, I loved it. And the fact that they included Final Fantasy characters was pretty damn dope, too, and I can't wait for the third one. I'm lavish for that one.
Yeah, when the part in that game when he's fighting alongside Squall and they're out there and he's swinging his gun blade and stuff, I was just like, this is what I want out of video games. I want fan service where I just get to see everything. Like, add the Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and we're perfect.
Yes.
Dude, this is pretty off topic, but I was reading something earlier on Facebook. It was like 37 best toys of the 90s that you probably forgot about, and it mentioned like pretty much all the Power Rangers knockoffs, like the Masked Rider and VR Troopers and all that shit, and I was just mind blown. The fact that you said Power Rangers just triggered that little memory in my head.
Beetleborgs on there.
Yeah, Big Bad Beetleborgs were on there. I forgot about that one.
Man, the Beetleborgs toys were way better than the show.
Yeah.
I watched the show recently on Netflix because I still, I loved Masked Rider, even though it was shitty. And so I've gone back and, gone on eBay and bought, Chinese copies of the actual Kamen Rider with American English subtitles.
Yeah.
So I've been watching that stuff. It was so much better, the actual version of it, because that show, they had, a big Furby character named Furbish.
Oh, wow.
That was a giant weird alien. I loved all that stuff. I love Power Rangers. I still watch that kind of stuff.
I remember being a kid and having, a couple Masked Rider toys, going with my bone crunching WWF wrestlers, and pretty much having my Masked Rider toy being like a luchador almost.
That's awesome. I used Sabretooth from the X-Men movie. Come to find out, he actually was a wrestler. I use that figure a bunch. Yeah. Wrestling action figures rule. I'm glad somebody brought up Masked Rider on the podcast. I feel like I'm going to dip too far in the nerd pool today, though, if we don't stop me.
Yeah, I think I was at Great Escape, and I saw a Masked Rider toy, but it was loose, and I could not remember the name of it. And then I looked at that list. It was either last night or this morning, and I was just like, holy shit, that's what it was. And I remember having, the Masked Rider action figure. I think it was, black and yellow, and he had a motorcycle that he came with. Dude, it was... Yeah. I just remember having so much fun with that in my bone-crunching action figures.
Dude, I had the character's name was, Dex or Dax, and I had him, out of suit. That, one, that's how spoiled I was, that I could just get all these action figures, and two, that's how much of a nerd I was, that I was like, I need him to where I can make him transform. I have fucking Peter Parker from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon series that came with, his camera. I just have Peter Parker, so that when I was playing, I could have him walk around and not be Spider-Man yet. Until I wanted him to go shuffle off and become Spider-Man.
That's awesome.
We got real off topic there.
We tend to do that. I told you, though, we're nerds.
Yeah, we don't care.
I am too proud of it.
Yeah. So, have you played WWE 2K16 at all?
For some reason, I've never been into any of those games.
Thank you.
I think the last one I actually gave a damn about was Here Comes the Pain for PlayStation 2. After that, I haven't really played any of the WWE games because the control scheme got stupid, and now I look at them the way I looked at WWF Warzone and Attitude for the PlayStation. It's annoying me. Down right C, down C, and maybe I could do a body slam. I feel the same way, but man, these games just don't do it for me. I might be the only wrestler who does not play. I'll play WrestleMania 2000, and I'll play Fire Pro, but that's about it.
I'm about to tap into an old joke. If there was a N64 Live, Joe, we'd be playing WrestleMania 2000 all day together. In a perfect world, N64 Live would be a thing.
I get bummed about licensing stuff because if there wasn't such an issue with that, they'd probably release it on one of the Nintendo consoles, like the Wii U for Virtual Console, because, I mean, you can get all those old games now. Which blows my mind. That's not something I ever would have thought of. Like, I thought, when I was 12 years old, I thought of the WWE Network, like, they should have something where I can just go watch any of this at any time and pay a certain amount of money. But I was like, but that'll never happen. Because, you know, when I'm in middle school, it's like early 2000s. So there was no way that was happening, and here we are now. And now you can fucking download video games that you played when you were younger for like $10. It's crazy to think, and bring it back around. Like it's awesome to access to these sorts of things in old games, and then now access to all these wrestling matches from everywhere on the internet, and especially with these subscription services and stuff like that. Have you used any of those? I've been I've got the network, and then I recently got CZW Studios to see, and it's kind of crazy going back and watching stuff from like 2003 to 2005, and like Chris Hero, like the most stacked cards you could think of were Hero, Steen, and Generico, and Mike Quackenbush, and all these people, Super Dragon, are all on the same thing at CZW. Like, do you subscribe to any of those?
I subscribe. I have the network, of course.
Yeah.
I want to get Beyond Demand for Beyond Wrestling because I love their style, how they do shows.
Mm-hmm.
I use the Stream Wrestling Torrents, so I have kind of like you said, the IWA Mid-South used to throw the Ted Petty Invitational tournaments, and just seeing like Claudio Castagnoli, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, Roddy Strong, Low Key, just seeing the amount of talent in the same building still blows my mind away. It's like, Nigel McGuinness, like everybody was there, and I love CM Punk. It's to watch his earlier stuff, and this is like, it's crazy. So now it's like all I do is wrestling all on my laptop. It's wrestling on, I have a smart TV, so I have the network. I can just press the button to get to the network. I have it on my PS4. I know my old lady gets annoyed about it, but it's like I'm a wrestler, man, and I live the life.
Do you get New Japan? Because they're Wrestle Kingdom tonight. I'm excited about that.
I love New Japan. Nakamura, that dude's my fucking hero.
Yes. He gets it. He understands wrestling better than 90% of wrestlers in terms of being a star, and also the in-ring work. Because, you look at him when he had his shorter hair, like, I don't even know how many years ago, he's wrestling Kurt Angle. Like, it's something, I don't know when it clicked in him, but he figured something out. And it's kind of like Steve Austin. He just shot for the stars.
Exactly. And Chris Murphy and Michael Jackson are his chief influences.
Yeah.
It's like, you can see, I know the match, exactly what match you're talking about. It's like, then he just went through emotions. He was kind of like, all right, And then eventually maybe he was like, look, I'm this weird cat. I love Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson. I think I'm going to bring that to the forefront. I don't even care. It's like, maybe he got to the point where it's like, I'm jaded. I'm tired of being the run-of-the-mill Japanese wrestler. I'm going to be myself. And as soon as he did, like, that's why now I preach it to a lot of the younger guys who ask me for advice. Like, what should I do? Like, first and foremost, of course, you always shut up and listen. I'm like, but as far as character, it's like, just be yourself. Like, there's only one you. So why would you try to be anybody else when you could just be yourself? No one else is being you. It's like, one of my buddy Will Huckabee describes it when people are like, so what's Joe's style? And he says, and I quote, he's a mix of Jack Sparrow and Chris Benoit. And everybody always looks like, how in the fuck you mix those? And then they see me work, they're like, wow.
Some things
really
just make sense.
Like, what the hell?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Who trained you?
I was trained at a place called CWF Mid-Atlantic. It's based out of Gibsonville now. A lot of guys that are like big now, like Trevor Lee and Andrew Everett, those guys came out of CWF's dojo. Those are the guys that I kind of came up with. I think still it's one of the best schools that you can find in North Carolina, as far as being in that area. I mean, Steve Carino has an academy now too, but back then, like, CWF was like the place to go. And a lot of us, like, I owe a lot of my psychology. Like, when I started, I was 125 pounds, soaking wet. I acted like Benoit then too, and of course, it was hope. Like, you're 125 pounds, bro. You're not snap suplexing me. But I owe a lot of my psychology to that place because my trainer, Jeff Rudd, he always had this thing, and it used to piss me off. He's like, look, man, he said, just kind of sit and watch. He's like, he said, best things in wrestling that you can learn are not by doing. He said, the best things that you're going to learn in wrestling are by watching and absorbing. So he used to make me sit down and, like, watch other guys train. Like, he had guys like Shane Helms coming in, and all these guys. And I want to get in the ring because I'm still a mark at this stage. I'm still, I don't give a fuck what my contemporaries think. We're all marks for it. I don't care if you're Russell, if you're whatever. Like, if you're not a mark for wrestling, why the fuck are you wrestling? But
exactly.
That was my little tangent. But, like, I would just watch. And then I was a referee for 2 years. And that killed me because Trevor Lee is out here wrestling matches. Cedric Alexander, who trained right up the street with George South, he's wrestling these big matches. Caleb Conley, all these other guys, and I'm wrestling the matches. But I learned so much more psychology-wise from wrestling for 2 years than a lot of my peers have. And we've been working the same amount of years, but I have a different side of it because I was the rest. But at CWF, I have a lot of trainers, if you ask, like Lee Valiant, a guy that, took his name from Jimmy Valiant, who was his trainer, like a guy named Kamikaze Kid, Joey Sylvia, Brad Stutz, he is, he's one of the commentators for CWF, and he also does commentary for PWX. And that dude is a mad fucking genius. Like, he's another one of those type of guys. But, yep, good old North Carolina.
I feel like you don't really hear about, training schools or actually I should rephrase that. I feel like dojos and, just training academies are really starting to come back. Because, I mean, I know when I was trained, it was kind of done in a really outlaw fashion. I was really young, and pretty much we did the whole paying dues process. We didn't pay for training, which we were very fortunate for, but we had to set up and tear down the ring. We trained in the middle of summer outside on a pleather mat, which was hell. But I wouldn't have had it any other way. But one of the things I always envied from certain guys was the fact that they, in Tennessee, until Ricky Morton opened a school, and Wolfie D for a while, we didn't really have any training academies or dojos that I can really think of off the top of my head. So I've always kind of envied guys that had the access to a dojo or an academy. Like, when I was a kid, the one place I wanted to train more than anything was the Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy. And look who they pumped out with Daniel Bryan and, probably just a list of names I can't even think of off the top of my head. But I think it's really cool that you had the dojo and the referee experience. A lot of guys don't really get.
One of those things you don't appreciate at the time, but once you've done it for a little bit and you start to think a little way, you're like, all right, well, I guess me being a ref actually did help, sharpen my wrestling acumen, so to speak.
It probably taught you a shit ton of patience, too.
Yeah.
Yes. And ring awareness.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that people don't think about, is how aware a ref has to be at all times where they are. Because, one, if they're in the way, they're blocking the action from the paid customers. They're there to see the wrestling. And two, they need to be in the right position at all times. So, that would be a good thing for every wrestler to go through. I'm surprised that's not something that's implemented more, where you gotta, put people through referee training.
I mean,
which I see they do stuff like that now in WWE, where they have them sit back and they'll have them practice commentary and stuff like that. But I still don't know if they have them do the reffing. And that's a really important thing in wrestling that gets overlooked a lot. It's like the less glamorous side of everything, because it seems like more people would want to be a ring announcer than a referee. But referees, you got the wrestlers and then the refs, and that's who you're going to see. And no, they don't. That's that's something that drives me nuts about televised wrestling is they don't talk about the refs anymore and who they are as characters. I mean, there used to be characters. There were heel refs.
Nick Patrick.
And now it's just everybody's just a guy in a striped shirt. So
I'm not sure how familiar you are with him, Chris, but he wrestles for Ring of Honor now. His name is Mike Posey. He used to be a TNA referee, and every now and then he'd be on like TNA Explosion under a mask as Kid USA. And I remember thinking that was the coolest fucking thing in the world when I actually like found that out. Because back then Posey was kind of just a goofy guy, like even as a referee. So when we saw Kid USA and you kind of like could match the mannerisms, and then, you know, I don't remember how we found out, but we found out and everything made perfect sense. Like, he started off as a referee and now, like, he's pretty, you know, he's got a pretty, you know, stable spot with Ring of Honor doing, I know he was on the, he was a part of the last Ring of Honor show in Nashville, and I'm pretty sure he gets featured on television quite a bit. It's something that you don't hear about as much anymore, like you guys were saying, though. I think it's something that should be, you know, gone back to, because one, you do learn ring awareness, you learn where to be and how to not be in the way. You're like almost the invisible third man without being invisible, if that makes any sense at all. And then, you know, I feel like if you're a really good referee and you're a student of the game and you really want to learn, you can help tell the story more rather than just be a referee.
Yeah. Also, when you mentioned that he wrestled under a mask, that just made me think, has anyone done a masked ref gimmick? Because that should be a thing. If there should be some sort of reason.
I feel like that would happen in Mexico.
Huh?
I feel like that would be something that could happen in Mexico easily.
Yeah, like why wouldn't there be a masked ref somewhere? Like still a legendary referee that wears a mask. It's Earl Hebner come back to the WWE.
I don't think that'll ever happen, unfortunately.
No. So we've been asking the last couple of wrestlers we've talked to on here this question, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you this. Has there been a spot that you've taken, like a move or anything that you wish you hadn't done or hadn't taken, like more so than any of the others? Like in retrospect, like I wish that hadn't happened.
I used to do the top dive outside of the top rope plancha, the flip. I used to do that a lot, and I was good at it. One show at CWF, and we were in this kind of hangar type building where they built cars next door, so it was like the floor was concrete, the whole nine.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a plancha on the guy. He wasn't ready, so you know, head of steam. I hit the ropes without, you know, letting him sail around to me, and I go ahead and I do the big dive, and he only catches me by the legs. So pretty much he power bombs me on the concrete.
Ooh.
And as soon as I hit, I lose feeling throughout my whole body. Like I was like, this is it. And I'm fucking paralyzed. I couldn't move. I was just laying there. The ref came out to the ring. The guy that trained me to be the ref, he was like, hey, you know, do you want me to stop the match? And it was a tag team match. I was like, well, nah, don't stop it. Like, I just hate it for my partner because the guys we were wrestling, they're two of the most, you know, badass guys from North Carolina, the Dawson brothers. And my partner was a little scrappy 5'6" dude. It was like maybe 150. Like, damn, I feel so bad for this guy. So it took me literally, the match was only scheduled to be 12 minutes. It took me all of 8 minutes to climb up to the apron. And then when I was finally able to stand up, you know, my partner's looking at me. I'm like, fuck it. You know, I'm going to finish this damn match. I tagged in. I did a hot tag. Somehow I was able to move. I was able to do the finish. And as soon as I got back through the curtains, I just collapsed.
The power of
to this
adrenaline.
day, like, my back is still kind of janky from that. It's like, so I don't take a lot of, like, crazy. I used to take power bombs, you know, burning hammers and the whole nine. But now I'm a little bit more meticulous about the things that I actually do take. Like, my back is still shaky from, you know, getting power bombed on the concrete.
One thing that's become really relevant in wrestling, and it always scares the shit out of me, but it looks so cool, and I guess like I can appreciate it more because I'm not the one taking it, are apron spots. Like when you German suplex carry on the apron, I believe it was you, the German carry on the apron.
Yeah.
The picture that came from that where everybody was calling him zombie carry. Carrie and I talked about it. He's like, you could just see the fear and hesitation in my eyes just because, like, he said, I know it's gonna suck. That's like, I remember when we trained, they were like the apron and right out, like in front of the turnbuckle, are the hardest parts of the ring. And now that guys are just like taking bumps and like formulating whole spots around the apron, just blows my mind. Like the power bomb onto the apron, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That shit, like, makes my back hurt just watching.
I'm still stressed out from when fucking Charlotte took that Alabama slam on the apron.
Yeah, fuck that.
Like, why? And
Alabama slam hurts in the middle of the ring. Like, apron is overkill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, that stressed me out, and every time fucking Big E does that spear through the ropes.
God.
To somebody, I'm just like, fuck your hips, man.
I love
every
Big
time
E.
you land.
I love Big E, and I don't want him to do that anymore because I feel like he's just shaving years off his career, and then he's going to get that one wrong landing.
He's going to Nick Foley himself.
Yeah. Or Lita himself.
He rolls through weird, so I'm never worried about his neck, but I'm just always like, when he slams, I'm just like, your hips are so big, and they're just slamming. It's like that cactus elbow every time. I'm just like, look at him, he can barely walk now. Look at Nick Foley. This is going to happen to you. Apron spots have become extremely, like the thing to do. They're like the new super kick.
Yeah.
Is an apron spot. And it hurts me every time watching it happen.
I don't know if WWE's rigging those aprons or not, but guys on the indies, my hat's off to you because that's gotta fucking suck.
Yeah. So you're in a tag team now, the Sound of the Fury. How'd you guys get together?
I met Will, I want to say about 5 years ago. He came for a J.J. Dillon seminar at CWF that we were hosting. Him and his partner there at the time. And that's when I first met up with him. He watched my match that night. And see, Will has always been one of those type of cats that he wants everybody to be better around him. He watches and that's where I learned this from, he watches every match on the show. Like, he'll try to watch every single second of every match on any show he's on. And so I had a match, and I came back through the curtain. He pulled me to the side. He's like, look, man. He's like, I love your intensity. You know, I love the way that, you exaggerate your movements. And, he gave me a lot of advice and critiques that a lot of guys did because everybody was all about their own shit. No one really wants to pay attention to help anybody else out. And some years later, he gave me a call. He was like, look, man, I have a spot in my car, and I'm going to NWA Smoky Mountain. I need someone to ride with me, help do the driving, and I got you a spot on the show. Do you want to come? And I heard in a Jim Cornette shoot, it's like guys who want to be somewhere in the business but they don't want to travel are idiots.
Yep.
And at this point, I was stuck in, Gibsonville for CWF. I was driving 4 hours to do like a 3-minute match. And I was jaded and disenfranchised. I'm about to go back to writing fucking poetry. Like, I'm above this. And he called me, and I always wanted to work for Smoky Mountain. And I went and I had a match with a kid named Zach Vincent. And ever since then, it's been history. Like, I had such a great match, and it was my first time in Tennessee wrestling out of state. So that blew my mind I was used to work in front of 100 people, and there was like 350 there. So even though that may seem like a smaller number of Sun Cats, with the mean, I was astronomically different from what I was used to. And then, like, ever since then, he's like, all right, he said, I brought you here. You didn't make me look bad by mentioning you to the promoter. He said, so now when I travel here, you're booked. And we just started hitting the road, and it went from Tennessee, to Georgia, from Georgia to West Virginia, from Virginia to Philly, from Philly to Illinois, from Illinois to Indiana. We drove 23 hours to Texas. And at this point, we were doing singles. Because he had another partner. He was with a guy named Sean Adams. They were known as God's Gift to Wrestling, and they used to run a lot in Georgia. And that cat, he decided to stop, wrestling so often. And one promoter was like, look, man, he was like,
can you do tag? And me and Will, we're students of the game. We're like, we can do anything you need us to do. We could be baby, we could be, heel. We could do tag, we could do singles. We are what you need us to be on your show. And he tagged us up. I believe it was Bill Behrens from Anarchy that first tagged us up. And it's like the look and the dynamic stuck to the point where now it's just like, yo, you dudes, I want to book you guys a tag team. You guys are awesome. You complement each other well. And it's funny, the dichotomy of it is because Will, who's the bigger of the two, he's the one that's the calm one. He's the docile, not docile, but he's the more, meticulous one. He's calculated. And then me, the smaller of the bunch, I'm the vicious one. It's like, that's why I love the match with IOU so much, is because you would expect for me to pair off with Nick Iggy. That's what a lot of guys would think, okay, Joe's a smaller guy, Nick is a smaller guy, so they'll pair off together. And I was always gunning for Kerry, which in the eyes of certain fans, like, this dude is stupid. Kerry's clearly bigger than him. He was crushing his fucking ass, but I was always gunning for Kerry. And I just think it's an interesting dynamic that's not done anymore because now everything is so, like I said, static. People don't want to think outside the box. But, Will, he's been one of the greatest assets that I've been afforded, since I started wrestling. He's a really cool dude.
I think
That's awesome.
I think one of the things that really helps you guys as a tag team is, even before you were tagging, you had that time in the car to really get to know each other. So it's not like, I had this conversation the other night with a buddy of mine where you can throw guys together and call it a tag team, but if you're a real wrestling fan and a real student of the game, that's not a real tag team. It's just two guys getting thrown together. And the more time you spend with somebody, and the more you get to know them, the ins and outs or quirks and, every little thing about them, you can work with that. And, maybe you can find some little piece of them that they haven't found yet and pull it out and, maybe either develop a team or develop a character out of it and then just, really hone in on it. And I guess really what I'm trying to say is I think it's cool that, you guys have spent the time, you guys aren't just two random guys, kind of like how Kerry and Nick aren't just two random guys. They talk like every day. They're not just a team, they're friends. And I get the same feeling from you guys, really. Just, when I got to watch the dog collar match, it wasn't just two random guys paired up. It was, there was a real sense of unity between you guys, which I feel lacks a lot in some of the quote-unquote tag teams of professional wrestling.
Exactly.
It just
There's
like...
time with tag teams, shared hotel rooms, drove to the show together, they shared meals, they shared their last scraps, and that they were brothers. And me and Will were brothers. We are, we disagree, but that's why I tell a lot of guys, like, me and Will don't just link up on a Saturday and go to a show, and then that's it. Like, there was times when, there was a time, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, when I was homeless. And I was living out of multiple hotel rooms, and this was like maybe not even a year ago. Will was like the only cat. Him and another dude, another wrestler named Jordan, that I actually told this was like, and Will actually, fussed me out. He's like, you've been living out of hotel rooms. How come you didn't fucking tell me? So he helped me, get a stable place to stay. Will is not just my tag partner, he's my brother. And I sense the same camaraderie with Kerry and Nick, and that's why I think we have such chemistry, all four of us, because we recognize that the tag team is you're supposed to be seen as one person.
Right.
It's kind of weird when you say it like that, but you're supposed to see, the sound and the fury as a unit. You're not supposed to see, okay, that's one guy who does one thing, and this is another that does another. And I think that's why now a lot of promoters that I talk to is like, I want to put you guys with IOU because you have chemistry. It's like, hit the road together, you're in a hotel room. When this guy has problems at home or, whenever real life happens, you're there for each other. And now certain tag teams are like, hey, what's up, dude? We're tagging tonight. Da-da-da-da-da. And after the show, they don't talk to each other. It's just like, I don't give a shit about this guy. It's like, the camaraderie is, I think, the reason why, in my opinion, Team IOU and the Sound and the Fury are the best tag teams in the United States right now. Because there's that brotherhood. It's lacking. It's sad. It's lacking. And I'm pretty sure Kerry and Nick have been there for each other the same manner of way. It's that. I think that's what lends us that edge. It's like the old school we're in this together. Like this isn't a gimmick. You know, I love this dude like a brother. We're family.
Right.
Yeah.
I think one thing that really translates well in tag team wrestling is kind of like what you said, where with a real team, you know, when two people have a really strong connection and they're paired up, or they decide to pair up, and they're, you know, you can kind of see them as one person. It's almost like one person is just an extension of the other person and vice versa, where, you know, you don't really know where one of them ends and the other begins. You know, where one lacks, the other, you know, maybe stronger. So there's that, I guess, you know, just chemistry where, you know, you can really flow off of each other, and you don't get that with just a random pairing of guys. Even though it might sound and look cool on paper, like if you were to pair, like, I don't know, I'm sure it happened, my memory is shit, but like if you threw like Big Show and Jericho together, you know, on paper that might look good to like a casual wrestling fan, but to somebody who really gets it, you're just like, man, you know, this is no Hawk and Animal. This is, you know, this is bullshit.
Yeah. I think Big Show and Jericho might have been a bad one, because I think they actually kind of fleshed it out and figured out they're not as seasoned as other people, but they actually were a pretty decent tag team. I'd put it more like when Triple H and Austin were together, you've got like a super group, which is awesome, but it's not like they were veterans, so they understood what to do, but it's not.
They didn't feed off of each
like,
other.
Yeah, it's not like watching like people that grew up tagging together, like the Hardys or like the Usos or
The Hooligans
Dudleys
even.
or anybody like that. Yeah, like people that were actually meant to be a tag team. So yeah, that's what frustrates me now, is there's no, because tag team wrestling is incredible, and it's not thought of in the same way as singles wrestling, and it's frustrating to me that it's like that in mainstream wrestling now, and it's good to see like Sound of the Fury and the Team IOU and like the Washington Bullets and all these teams that they're making the rounds and they're getting booked as tag teams, and you're main eventing as tag teams.
Yeah.
On shows and getting booked because of the work that you guys put out there. It's glad to see that people care, because I care and I love tag team wrestling. I always have. There's just so much more you can do with it. I don't know. I've gone off on this tangent before, so I'm not coming to.
That actually leads me to a question I want to ask Joe. You guys are, you know, there's no secret, you know, a very active tag team. I guess is there a bucket list for you, or you guys, you know, are there any tag teams out there right now that you really just want to lock up with? And, you know, as a second part to that question, are there any tag teams you wish that you could have gotten to wrestle, you know, like maybe that aren't, you know, active anymore, or maybe just wrestle on the once off? Is there anybody that you would love to just get booked against?
We'd love to work the Hooligans. Those dudes they're fucking awesome. Zero Gravity. There's a team in North Carolina here, the Dawson brothers, Zane and Dave Dawson. Like, they're twins. They're a twin tag team, and they're both huge. You know, and they're it's like, we'd love to work with those guys. There's another team called the Brutes in North Carolina, two big guys that pretty much were raised in the business together. I'd love to work at Washington Bullets again. We worked them before in PCW. You know, that's another brother tag team that has that chemistry that you hardly see. As far as teams that we'd love to wrestle, you know, the British Bulldogs, first and foremost, Davey Boy and Dynamite Kid, those are two of my hugest influences, and those cats were awesome. They were brutal. Especially Dynamite Kid. I think a lot of us shorter, stockier wrestlers, we are the illegitimate children of Dynamite Kid. So, you know, Will, he loved, you know, I liken him to, you know, the British Bulldogs anyway. I would have loved to work Tully and Arn. Oh my God. Yeah. If we could have got, and Will, he'll tell you, like, he's the biggest Arn Anderson mark ever. Like, you know, Arn Anderson is his to him what Taker is to me. But Tully Blanchard was one of the most underrated. You know, to me, Tully is better than Ric Flair.
Right.
And I know that's kind of controversial, especially me being from where I'm from, in North Carolina. Like, I don't know what's better than Flair. Like in the Horsemen, like, I cared most about Arn and Tully. And, like, because those, Ric Flair, he was the mouthpiece, and I got a lot of promo cues. I love cutting promos. I took a lot from Ric Flair. But as far as the workhorses, like, even Tully, he could cut a mean promo. Arn, he didn't do a lot of fancy talking, but what Arn said was just, like, dead to the point. You believed him. There was no disputing the fact that Arn said, I'm going to whoop your ass. You believed it as a fan that Arn was going to whoop that person's ass, bar none. The British Bulldogs, Tully and Arn, the Funk Brothers, definitely. Chris and Eddie.
Yeah.
Eddie Guerrero. You can change interchangeable. You can throw Dean Malenko in there too. Dean and Joe Malenko. Punk and Colt Cabana, to bring it down to another, because I love Punk and I love Cabana. I'd love to work, and I know Cedric Alexander doesn't really like these cats, so I might get key if he listens to this, but I'd love to work Xavier Woods and Big E, that version of the New Day. I think it'd be fun, definitely. And finally, the Terry Gordy and Michael P.S. Hayes, Freebirds.
Oh, wow.
That's the ultimate dream match. If you watch some of my heel work, it's like there's times I blatantly rip off Michael P.S. Hayes. It's ridiculous. And, of course, Will always has an issue because I'm like, yo, you're Bam Bam Gordy. He's like, so since I'm fat, I got to be Bam Bam. I was like, no, man, Bam Bam was a badass. But, of course, my P.S. Hayes, like, you can't shake it like I can, man. But, yeah, those two dudes, those are dream matches. Jesus, if we could work the Freebirds, I'd be smiling the entire damn time.
That's
I know
awesome.
I'm gonna get stiff, but it'll just be fucking amazing.
That's awesome.
You talking about Arn Anderson, and just Arn had this certain believability to him, like you were saying. When I used to growing up, I always loved watching like WCW Saturday Night or like any WCW I could really get. I'd bounce back and forth. But one thing about Arn Anderson that always just kind of struck me, Arn reminded me a lot of my dad. He was just like, he seemed like super stern, and in my own weird thought process, he was always like the dad of professional wrestling to me growing up. Like he looked like just a dad that would, if you fucked something up as a kid, he would whoop your ass. And that's one reason I always loved Arn Anderson, because he was just like this big, burly dad figure of professional wrestling. And
Exactly.
he fucking that spine buster though, just Arn's a man.
I'm glad somebody kind of took the shine on Tully Blanchard on here, because he really was the unsung hero of the Horsemen in terms of what he could do. Speaking of, have y'all watched his daughter wrestle?
I don't think
Because
so.
That's the homegirl. Yeah.
Oh, you know her? Yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't gotten picked up by anyone yet. Like, why? I'm surprised WWE hasn't signed her and tried to pull in a Horseman angle with Flair's daughter, because she is way better than Flair's daughter is. I watched her wrestle the other day. She understands, like, in ring, just one match I've seen, I was just like, yep, she's far beyond what anybody could have imagined. I'm surprised she's not signed by anyone yet.
You and I both, man.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably coming, but yeah.
And this is another one that's like definitely a student of the game, man. She really is. She even cuts a damn promo like her old man. It's kind of freaky. And I remember the last PWX show, it was Battlefield X, where I wrestled Anthony Henry. And before that show was the Queens of Combat. And she was there, and I just walk upstairs because we're waiting for, the locker room. And I look in one of the VIP boxes, and here's Tully Blanchard. And, of course, I'm kind of marking out in style. I'm like, oh, my God, here's my hero from the Horsemen. And I don't want to bug him because he's watching his daughter wrestle. And then they do a little, gimmick together during the show to screw Jessica Havoc out of the match with Tessa. And if you talk to Tessa, like, she's like a young old-timer. She's one of those people that, even though she hasn't been in the business long, she's been in the business her entire life.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so even though the experience may not, the in-ring experience may not match up, she's been in the business her whole life, so she gets it. So yeah, your surprise echoes definitely here in North Carolina, man. We just don't, I just don't get it. But as you said, I think that's coming quickly down the pipeline for her.
Yeah. And she has so much fucking experience because isn't Magnum TA her stepdad? So I mean, she had, so it's fuck. Speaking of that,
untapped well
that
knowledge.
match, that fucking Magnum TA Tully Blanchard match is still like one of the cage one is still one of the most violent matches I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
I mean, every time I just hear the word Tully Blanchard, I just think of how fucking ruthless that match was, and how they've just coexisted since in real life. Just like, oh yeah, he's married to my ex, helping raise my kid.
Wrestling's
But
such
we
a
killed
crazy
each other in
world.
the wrestling ring.
So Joe, what's next for you or the Sound of the Fury? Like, what do you guys got coming up over the next few months?
Next Sunday, we're at a place in West Virginia called FCW. And this is a place where the main event is going to be, Al Snow and Shane Douglas are in the main event, for a heavyweight championship. So that's always cool,
Right.
because I grew up off of old ECW. But we're wrestling two guys, and if you ask anybody, I'm the Nick Bockwinkel train of thought as far as wrestling acumen goes to speak. I take wrestling very seriously. I study it. It's my lifestyle. It's not one of those things I can turn off. It's just me. I'm a wrestler. So me and Will, the Sound of the Fury, we're wrestling, if you want to even use that term, two MMA guys. Oof. They've been running this little angle there where, MMA versus wrestling. And there's a couple of fans that come to the show that actually do MMA. And they talk a lot of shit. So I actually, I love cutting promos. I got on the mic and I said something to the point Royce Gracie, of course you guys know who he is. Do you know who handed him his first defeat? A professional wrestler.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the premise of this whole match. So, of course, me and Will are going to run roughshod because, the four posts and the ropes are different beasts than an octagon or, whatever. And I have an amateur wrestling background, so I'm pretty sure I'll be good. Other than that, we'll be back in Proving Ground Pro up there in Illinois sometime in March. We're supposed to be going to Vegas in April.
Wow.
For the Cauliflower Alley Club. I believe Will has a match. I think maybe I may have a match, but I'm going more so to support him. I'm trying to get to Canada. Trying to get to Japan. All I really have to do is get my passport, and hopefully I'll be in the 01 dojo for a couple of months.
That would be
And,
incredible.
other than that, man, AWE will be back there in February, definitely. I love that place. I can't say enough good things about that place. So, yeah, definitely a lot of big things on the horizon for Will Huckabee as a brand, Joe Black as a brand, and the Sound of Fury as a combined brand.
You brought up Proving Ground, and right now, I feel like Illinois is kind of a hotbed for wrestling right now because you've got Proving Ground Pro, and you've got Pro Wrestling Freedom. I believe that's also in Illinois, correct? I think Pro Wrestling Freedom's also based out of, I think, Chicago in Illinois. I feel like with those two companies plus St. Louis Anarchy, the Midwest is kind of like this. I think it's just about ready to explode with just fucking crazy wrestling talent. And the cool thing is, they're pulling from all over the country, so it's not like their own little bubble. You get guys like the Sound of the Fury, IOU, and then, the Hooligans are always there. I think they're pretty close to those areas. And then the Viking War Party is always there. And then just you'll see different names pop up there, and I think it's just a matter of time before the Midwest just explodes. I think they're right on the brink of something huge.
I wholeheartedly agree.
But is there anywhere that people can keep up with you? I know you've got a Twitter, and your Facebook, but do you want to go ahead and tell them maybe where they could buy some merch and stuff?
The merch will be coming at the end of this month. I'll have some shirts in the vein of Street Fighter, like the Street Fighter S design, since I don't want to just put a couple of random words on a black shirt and call it a shirt. So those will be available at the end of the month. I'll put the information on my Twitter, which is BlackCloudJB, and Facebook, Joseph Blackwell. I'll put the links up to that when those are available. I'm actually getting a guy to draw up a kind of like I'm a big Dragon Ball Z guy. So I have a guy that drew me as a Dragon Ball Z character that I'll be putting on, little poster cards and maybe a shirt here and there. And also, me and Cedric Alexander are wrestling January 29th for Steve Carino's promotion, PWF, out of Hubert, North Carolina. And if you ask anybody in the Indies, like Cedric, I call him punk-ass Kakarot. To me, I consider him my Goku. And a lot of people, before I even said anything about me watching Dragon Ball Z, just for the way I am, my work ethic, I get called Vegeta everywhere I go. Like, because there's been times I've been hurt and I've been in the gym, like I never stop. But it seems like no matter how good I get, like Cedric, his match with Chip there at AWE, it was a work of art. And I'm watching the whole thing, and as a fan, like, this match is great, but as another worker, I'm like, this is my rival, and this motherfucker always tries to find a way to stage me, But I'm having somebody draw up a Goku versus Vegeta-esque rendition of me and Cedric, and I'll be selling that in some shape, form, or fashion, or some medium. So, yeah, there's a few things coming up.
That's I feel awesome.
Like who's your favorite Dragon Ball Z character? Vegeta.
So
I'm a Gohan Piccolo guy. Yeah,
I love Piccolo too.
I had to get that in real quick.
I feel like that drawing you were talking about would make a really cool print that I could just picture framed on my wall.
Yeah.
I've been getting really into prints lately, so especially pro wrestling prints.
Yeah, wrestlers need to think more outside of the box in the merchandise area with like prints and stuff like that, more so than just 8x10s.
Prints are kind of a niche market, though.
Yeah, that's true, but I mean,
it's something you can keep with you, though.
Yeah.
So we got the Twitter, we got Facebook. You'll have merch soon at your gimmick tables. What about, do you have a YouTube channel so that people can kind of like, if they haven't watched you for whatever reason, they can kind of get a feel for what you're doing?
Yeah, the YouTube is under Joseph Depp, like Johnny Depp.
Okay.
Joseph. And there's a couple of matches that I had with Chip Day on there, which we had a best of 5 series, and that was called the best series of matches of 2015. I think I got a match with Moose, Big Moose on there. And there's a few other matches on there, so yeah, definitely check it out.
Cool. We'll be sure to post those links up as well. Just because I feel like any chance anybody can get to find a new wrestler and kind of latch onto them is great, rather than just watching the same old shit every Monday night. Definitely branch out and see what's in your area or maybe on the other side of the country. I'm trying to get some friends in Arizona and California to send me info to local promotions out there just so I can see what's going on rather than just staying in the Southeast. And, I have friends in the Northeast that are like, hey, you should check out these guys. But there's just so much wrestling all over the world, and I want to watch it all. And I feel like we're all kind of in the same boat with that right now, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun talking to you, man. We've run kind of long, but we don't mind because this was a fun one.
Yeah, it's always cool to tap into other subjects that can be pulled into wrestling or pulled from wrestling. You don't get that a lot.
No. But yeah, anytime you want to come back on, we'll be glad to have you. Maybe we can get you, both of you guys on here as a tag team. Maybe we what we should do is we should do a clusterfuck episode where you guys argue with Team IOU.
Like a crossfire
and we're just
edition.
The moderators. Yeah, we're just the moderators.
I'd love that. I think that'd be probably the most entertaining thing ever. Yeah,
we'll get that in the works. But yeah, we've had a good time talking to you here with the Black Cloud, Joe Black, which I'm now marking out for because I'm excited that's where you got the name from. And we'll catch you guys later on the Kick Out of 2 podcast.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, guys.